Study the downfall of Javier Baez and Tim Anderson. Say less. Ladies and gentlemen, in this video today, I'm going to try my best to really analyze the careers of Javier Baez and Tim Anderson to this point in 2024. Javier Baez and Tim Anderson, once being coveted as America's shortstop, at least I'm going to covet them as America's shortstops once upon a time, both playing for Chicago-based teams, and then suddenly they fell off the face of the earth. The story that I really do find interesting here with Javier Baez and Tim Anderson and just how far they have fallen from grace. Again, it just really goes to show you how difficult it is to be at the top of the game in baseball, or just to be a really good average player for that matter in baseball year after year after year. I believe the average major league career is 3 seasons. Get started off with Javier Baez first. Javier Baez did debut back in 2014. His first big league hit was a home run for the Chicago Cubs, in which, coming up with the Cubbies, he played second, short, and third base. I know we all know him primarily as a shortstop these days, but he did come up and played a lot of second base in his early years and some third base as well. Javier Baez, for the first couple of years in 2014 and 2015, only played a combined 80 games due to injuries, and that is one thing that I guess we could note here with this fall off from Anderson and Baez is, well, you could say injuries have played a role. Javier Baez, a very explosive player at that, really relies a lot on his athleticism to be good at what he does, and unfortunately injuries have taken a toll on both of their careers, but to me, I don't think it's fully injuries. Made that case that, yeah, it's definitely a part of it. 2016, we see Javier Baez really come into his own here, in which he played 142 games in 2016, slashing 14 home runs, striking out 108 times, with a batting average of 273. Coming into his own that year in 2016, really making a name for himself, had a good run in the playoffs as well. And of course, 2016 is when the Cubs win the World Series. So Javier Baez, very early on in his career, really his first full big league season, gets a World Series ring with the Cubbies, and really from there, what's going to happen next? How many rings are the Cubs and Javier Baez going to win? We thought this Cubbies team would be a dynasty. That never obviously took place, and I think that is the biggest reason why Javier Baez has fallen from grace, is leaving Chicago, and especially leaving the Cubs and that core that we thought once was, could have been something special. I'm not saying they're not special. They weren't special. They won a World Series, but I think it's safe to say they definitely did not live up to the full expectations of what could have been. In 2017, he plays 145 games, hits 23 homers, strikes out 199 times, and that has always been a problem with Javier Baez. It's the strikeouts. There's plenty of memes about Javier Baez, as you guys pretty much all know, about the striking out meme where he just chases balls way off of the plate that you've never seen anybody chase. Really the biggest problem with Javier Baez is his undiscipline at the plate, if you will. He's really never been able to fix that. 2018 is where we see Javier Baez's career peak. 2018, he had a monster season, playing his highest total games of his career to this point, 160 games, 176 hits, 34 home runs, 111 RBIs, which is a career high to this point, 167 Ks, which is still a problem for Javier Baez, even in his best season in 2018. He hits 290 for the Cubs in 2018, flashing an 881 OPS, starting for the National League in the 2018 All-Star Game, and ultimately finishing second in MVP voting that year in 2018. So 2018 was a magical season for Javier Baez. I think it's the best version we're ever going to see of Javier Baez. Literally finished second in MVP voting. He had a monster year. We thought, wow, this is going to be maybe a Hall of Fame type player in Javier Baez that we have here with the Cubbies. If we could just take care of a couple of things, you know what, the sky's the limit, but really that never panned out to fruition. He did the All-Star Game in 2019 as well, so 2018, 2019 are his only 2 All-Star Game appearances. And ultimately, his tenure with the Cubs kind of comes to a halting, slow end. He gets traded in 2021, and the entire Cubs core was basically traded that summer in 2021. Bryant, Rizzo, Baez, all gone by that trade deadline. To me, when I look at Javier Baez and his career and what went wrong, what's gone wrong, there's always been red flags, there's always been problems in his game, but for me, it's the fact that he left Chicago. I think he was just kind of fitting in with Chicago, and he should have been a lifetime Cub. I know that's kind of unrealistic these days for a player to be a lifetime player, but I do think that Wrigley did fit his style of play with the Cubbies fans, and ultimately leaving the Cubs and that organization, that clubhouse, did him over the wrong way. He gets traded to the Mets, does okay with the Mets. 21 was one of his best recent seasons. Really, we haven't seen the same player since. He then goes on to sign a 6-year, $140 million deal with the Detroit Tigers. And at that point, everybody was left kind of scratching their head to why the Tigers and why Javier Baez would do this deal. But of course, you got to get your money. And so Javier Baez did get his money with the Detroit Tigers. Tigers at that point were pretty much a dead last team. And to this day, they really are not going anywhere. And Javier Baez, to this day in 2024, 53 games played this year, 1 home run. I mean, you can't make this up. Javier Baez has 1 home run on the year with 42 strikeouts. He's hitting 183 with a 456 OPS. Literally one of the worst players in baseball. It's not even close. Javier Baez has fallen from grace, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts as to how Javier Baez fell this far. Move on to the next guy on the south side of Chicago with Tim Anderson. And Tim Anderson debuted a couple years later than Javier Baez did in 2016 with the Chicago White Sox. And Tim Anderson has always been a player that has been pretty steady, I guess you could say. Pretty steady, but definitely made a name for himself in these most recent years. 2016, he debuts, plays 99 games, 116 hits, strikes out 111 times to a 283 batting average with a 738 OPS. So Tim Anderson is one of those players that isn't a home run guy. He hits for average. 2017, he plays 146 games, 151 hits, 162 strikeouts, 257 batting average. 2018, 153 games, 136 hits, 290 batting average. 2019, 123 games played to a 335 batting average. He does have a batting crown to his name. Just goes to show you how good Tim Anderson once was. When you win the batting crown, you were pretty good at one point at hitting the baseball and getting on base pretty much every single game. And that was Tim Anderson's go-to. Base hit after base hit. In 2020, the short 60-game season, he hits 322. 2021, one of his best seasons of his career, hits 304, still playing 123 games. 2022, he starts for the All-Star team. I was at that All-Star game right here in LA, and he hit 301 in that 2022 season. And 2023, once again, played 123 games. So Tim Anderson really likes the number 123. We see a major drop-off in his average where he hits 245. And finally, the White Sox cut ties with him at the end of 2023, where he goes on to sign with the Miami Marlins. And this season in Miami, it has been a disaster, to say the least, where he's hit 214, only getting 50 hits. And he was just DFA'd by the Miami Marlins. Once again, one of the worst players in baseball, Tim Anderson. So Anderson and Baez, both some of the worst players in baseball. It's really head-scratching as to how these guys, once on the cover of Sports Illustrated, deemed as the next future shortstops of baseball, have basically been the worst players in baseball. It's really unheard of to go from that high to this low, but if there's any sport that's going to happen, it's definitely baseball. Fall off for me with Tim Anderson. There was a moment a couple of years back where he called himself the modern-day Jackie Robinson, and really ever since that day, when he called himself the modern-day Jackie Robinson, he has never been the same guy. I think it was in a conversation with Josh Donaldson, and yeah, he was never the same guy after he touted himself the modern-day Jackie. The knockout by Jose Ramirez last year really put an end to his career, I believe. Nobody really looked at him the same, and this year in Miami, he's just been a shell of his former self. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section, especially from Cubs and White Sox fans. What happened to your ex-favorite players? Will we ever see them return to their former selves?